Everyone has something that needs to be said right now. Everyone has something that needs to be heard right now. What's going on in this country is impacting every single one of us. One of the things that I think is important for the queer community to be willing to do is to show up, even if it's not specifically about queer issues, to be present, because those issues are also impacting you, and your support for those communities is also supporting your own. There simply are not enough queer people to fight this fight alone, and we're going to have as many allies as we can.
Hello, and welcome to Power Beyond Pride, a queer change-making podcast bringing you voices and ideas from across our fierce and fabulous spectrum to transform our world. I am your co-host for the evening, Mattie Bynum, the one, the only, the most magnificent. I am, she is, her. Yes, that is me. And I am also accompanied by my wonderful co-host,
Kate Diadamo. I am a queer femme based out of Baltimore who loves big hair and even bigger earrings. In this episode, we are going to be talking to Melvy Shaw, project manager for the North Shore Automation, chair of the Greensboro Transgender Task Force, and a community organizer with a passion for art and photography.
Now, Melvy started her career in Los Angeles as a production assistant on Spike's TV reality show, The Club, and was promoted as a post-production supervisor within a short span to complete the Sci-Fi Network series Master Blaster. Currently, Melvy is managing the day job, the first LGBTQ plus center in Greensboro, North Carolina, the Guilford Green Foundation. We are so glad to have you here. Now, before we dive in, I was told that there is a really funny story about how you got your name, Melvy.
Yes, that's true. Melvy is a nickname. My legal name is Melissa Ivy Shaw. When I first transitioned or started to transition, one of the people I came out to was a coworker, an assistant editor. And we wound up at a bar in Palms, California, where there was a Irish folk singer named Anita Mansfield. And Anita just happened to be serving that night. And I was sitting there with my friend who was making fun of me because there was already a Melissa and an Ivy. And here I come wanting to name myself Melissa Ivy and walk into the office. And Anita out of nowhere pipes up and says, call her Melvy. And fast forward about 8 weeks later, and I'm sitting in color correction, and there in the credits is Melvy Shaw. And I had no idea my friend had done it. He had just flipped it in, and it just kind of floored me that it was there, and I left it, and it stuck. I mean, it stayed with me from show to show and made its way back out here.
I love that. All right. So real quick, Melvy, I just want to run over a couple of things about you, and then we're going to dive right into our wonderful evening together. Is that okay?
Sounds great.
Correct me if I'm wrong about anything. I do try to make sure I give everybody their flowers properly. So Melvy is a photographer and videographer. You have also recently closed down your social media accounts. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah.
All right. So your photography portfolio is linked to your signature, correct?
It was in the signature of my email. I can put it in the chat here for you, but it's on 500px.com. I have a portfolio through them, which 500px is a photography social media account. So I guess technically I'm not completely off social media.
It's okay. Look here, let me say, I tell everybody I'm off social media, and I secretly have a Twitter account that I like to go and talk people on. So I'll get you on that one. And I also hear that you are a huge fan of music and go to many concerts. So what was your favorite concert?
Oh, Lord, that's a loaded question. I can tell you I've been to hundreds of them. I have seen Widespread Panic play over 70 times.
Wow.
Yeah, which is, that's been kind of my thing, is going and seeing as many Panic shows as I can and seeing the same friends that are there. And, it's just a good time. It's a good family, and I've just really enjoyed it. So.
Well, that's good. And also, too, you play instruments. You play the guitar, the bass, the mandolin. And I have to admit, I've never actually met someone that plays the mandolin, but I know what the mandolin is. And so is it relaxing or is it complicated?
For me, I've got big old sausage fingers, so it's very complicated. My hand is definitely better suited to play the bass guitar, and I'm pretty terrible at playing the mandolin right now. But there was a busker on the street in Savannah, Georgia that was willing to sell it to me for $30, so I bought it. And
hey, you like me, I can never pass up a good deal.
Yeah.
I'm like you. I could never pass up a good deal. I have so much mess down that I don't actually use, but because it was a good sale, I had to purchase it. So yeah, I get you on that one.
There you
And
go.
you've also spent time working with the Sanctuary Program, worked with multiple families who have took up residency in local churches to avoid deportation and housed by Afghan refugees who fled for family or safety. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. I did have a great opportunity to work with a couple of amazing families that unfortunately had to uproot their lives and basically lock themselves in a church. And it wasn't a church that they were a part of. It was a completely different church that they had no connection to. But the goal was to put them in a location that ICE would not breach, to put them inside sanctuary and encourage ICE to violate the statute of sanctuary. A number of those people actively made it to their court dates. And I know at least 3 people who are still here because they made it to their court dates. So that was just a really extremely rewarding experience to be able to volunteer and be a part of that. And then I have had a wonderful opportunity to work with some of the refugees coming from Kabul as well during the evacuation. There's a number of them here in Greensboro. And if anybody out there is in Greensboro and looking for a group to support, I would strongly encourage you to reach out to IAC at the Human Rights Department and check with Jody Stanley. And there's a lot of refugee communities here in Greensboro that could use your support. So
That's such a beautiful experience of solidarity that it sounds like you're describing. And I'm guessing, and we're going to dive into your work, but it sounds like that's something that is really rooted in kind of just an expansion and a different layer of the work that you already do. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but
Sure.
that's what it sounds like.
Yeah, it was an opportunity to see some similar struggles that I faced in my life, but from a completely different perspective. I had the privilege of not having to uproot my life and go hide in sanctuary. I mean, that's something that I can count as a +1 for me. But to see families have to go through that, to watch kids get moved from their schools, and you can put a kid on a new soccer team, but it doesn't mean they're going to make friends right away. It was a challenge to kind of watch those kids have to learn to re-socialize the same way that I did when I transitioned, but from a completely different perspective, and in my opinion, a far more heartbreaking one. I mean, it was a rough experience, but it was a good thing to be a part of.
So actually with that, I would love to talk a little bit about some of the other work that you do in Greensboro specifically. You work full-time as a project manager, you work part-time with Guilford Green, you're chair of the Transgender Task Force, and you're also attached to Leadership Greensboro, that flagship project, on top of all of the other things that you do, including boosting skills, your hobbies, your art. I'd love to hear a little bit about some of that work that you're doing in Greensboro.
Certainly. So I'm no longer a full-time project manager with North Shore. That was the job that I was doing before I stepped back in with Guilford Green. But that job was an absolute expansion of my understanding of post-production, and a reminder that I really don't know as much as I used to when it comes to that world. That was a very challenging experience that was extremely rewarding. But, you know, my post-production experience was physically managing television shows in an edit bay based situation with 28 editors and servers all in the same room in the same building. The work I did with North Shore was helping folks migrate that process to the cloud, work completely with digitally based media on servers that were across the country and not really there. I mean, that's kind of what the cloud system is. So that was a big challenging expansion for me and something I'm excited to continue to learn about. I did step back in with the Guilford Green Foundation when they were having changeover at their leadership level. There's a new executive director there now, Beth Newton, who has gotten her feet on the ground and is starting to do some really remarkable stuff. And we're excited for what's coming. Working at the center full time it's a challenge, especially right now. I mean, I basically rejoined the staff heading right into the election and working the front desk and taking the calls and answering the emails. I mean, it is just how obvious how quickly things have gone south for so many people. And really have to hand it to the community here because they've done a really good job of not taking it out on us. I mean, it feels like one of those situations where we're going to be one of the resources in town that people turn to. And we are hearing about this as quickly as everybody else. So having to navigate and provide resources or solutions isn't happening as quickly as we'd like for it to. So to have a bit of patience to be able to navigate this alongside the community has been helpful, is as helpful as it can be in a time like this, I guess. So.
What are some future challenges that you see that the trans and the LGBT community may face in Greensboro as time develops, as this goes on?
I believe that housing is going to be one of the most significant challenges that LGBTQ folks face in Greensboro. there are the current logistical factors of rising rents, it just being harder and harder and harder to get yourself situated in a place. You're now faced with all kinds of fees to even get an application across someone's desk for an apartment. Knowing that so many queer youth, queer people of color are going to be facing the challenges that are going to face them right now, and then potentially have to deal with a housing market that can't support them is a really hard outlook to have. But it's honestly probably what we're looking at. Greensboro has made some moderate steps in working with the houseless community. I say moderate, and that's being generous. They've got pallet homes available, but it's not enough. There's a continuum of care that has some amazing organizations and people working with it and for it, but it's not well enough supported to really be able to make a dent. And compound that with what we're doing to ourselves as a society right now, and the idea of bringing more money into that space seems far-fetched. It seems like it's a losing battle in a rural area that is, we're a little blue dot in a red sea right now, and trying to get our neighbors to pay a little extra in taxes is going to be a challenge. So
That is definitely an issue. I definitely agree. I'm currently in North Carolina as well. I'm actually in Siler City, so I'm not far from Greensboro. So I definitely understand the challenges. And I was going to actually say something kind of funny and a little lighthearted, but I remember in Atlanta, when I moved to Atlanta, it cost me almost $350 just to fill out an application to get an apartment. That didn't include getting the apartment. So I can only imagine how much it costs today. And that was a couple years ago. So, oh, Jesus.
yeah.
How has Greensboro changed since you've been in Greensboro? Do you see where it has progressed and gotten better over the years for the LGBT community? And also, too, what are some things that you can always see that can always be focused on other than just housing? Like, what are some things that we definitely as a community need to come out and support?
Certainly. So the city itself has changed quite a bit since my time here. I grew up here. I grew up on a farm a little north of the city. And I mean, I remember downtown being a place that was pretty much off limits after dark. There were a few bars down there, but from what I understood, it wasn't really a place where anybody under the age of 18 was going to find anything they could go do. And about the only place I ever went to downtown was a head shop called Glitters, where I got a Blind Melon t-shirt. That's what downtown Greensboro was growing up. And when that's your view of the community of Greensboro, where you think people are going to congregate when it's just not a communal place at all, it's hard to kind of get a sense as to what the community really offers marginalized groups. I would come to learn later that there actually was a fairly robust gay community here in Greensboro all the way through my formative years, all the way growing up into high school, that I just had absolutely no idea existed because A, I hadn't acknowledged to myself that I was queer, and B, it just wasn't spoken about. There was not a place where those folks could be themselves publicly. There really wasn't a place where the community could gather and be well known. I don't want to say it was secretive, but it certainly was quiet. Watching the city redevelop its downtown area and make it as inclusive as they've tried to make it has been a really good thing to watch. I know there's a lot that Greensboro can do to better downtown. We certainly have our challenges when it comes to public transit, when it comes to access, when it comes to everything else that goes on in this city. But I do think that downtown now is significantly better than it was when I was growing up. And I think it provides a lot more for communities. I keep bringing up downtown because I learned kind of early on that it wasn't necessarily just the gay bars that folks in the community migrated towards. But there are a lot of queer-owned businesses in Greensboro that draw a fairly substantial queer crowd. And seeing queer-owned businesses on the stretch in downtown Greensboro was impressive to me. I grew up just outside of city limits, so I had a bit more of a rural upbringing, but I could never have imagined that a queer person would own a business on Elm Street in downtown Greensboro. So I think that speaks to a lot of what the community has been able to do for itself. I left Greensboro the year after the foundation was formed, and I had absolutely no clue that it existed. I didn't know any of the people involved in it. But the foundation that I work for is over 25 years old. And I had no idea until I came back from LA that it was here. So I think that also speaks to what Greensboro has been able to do for itself. Does Greensboro have its issues? Yeah. I think it toes the line of progress without actively taking progressive measures. And I think we're at a dangerous point in time right now. And I think Greensboro may do this again. But looking at the good side of things, Greensboro has always been an inclusive city, even if I didn't know about it. And that's just kind of a testament to the community here.
Most definitely.
And that feels like a great place for us to take a short break and get back to you in less than a minute. Please don't leave us because we're just getting warmed up with our conversation with Melvy Shaw. Welcome back. This is Power Beyond Pride, a queer change-making podcast, and I'm your host, Kate Diadamo. And I'm here with activist and community organizer, Melvy Shaw. So Melvy, we were just talking about some of the changes that you've seen and some of the shifts that you've seen in Greensboro for queer folks in the years, especially that you've been back. And so with that in mind, how should communities and allies and activists and accomplices be showing up in the spaces that you're in to support queer folks at this time?
I think it's less about supporting queer folks specifically and more about supporting everyone equally and communally right now. And I say that with knowing that's a loaded thing to say on a queer-based podcast. But one of the things that I've noticed that I've been going to the protest, the hands-off protest, the No Kings March here recently. There are a lot of amazing things that are being said at those protests. They're being said very quietly by a lot of people spread out across the yard, across the area where everyone's protesting. Everyone has something that needs to be said right now. Everyone has something that needs to be heard right now. I mean, what's going on in this country is impacting every single one of us in ways that we, whether we want to admit it or not, we really didn't see coming. I mean, I knew a lot about what was coming down the pipeline, but I did not expect it to come with the volume and the ferocity that it has. And one of the things that I think is important for the queer community to be willing to do is to show up, even if it's not specifically about queer issues, to be present because those issues are also impacting you, and your support for those communities is also supporting your own. And I would hope that it lends to some of those folks seeing you at their events and returning the favor, whether that be inviting you up to speak or bringing queer speakers out, whether it's adding something to the message, or whether it's even just showing up to an event that's specifically for queer people. We need more than our community to back us up right now. There simply are not enough queer people to fight this fight alone. And we're going to have as many allies as we can. One of the things that I was really proud to see North Carolina do when it came to House Bill 2 was to join its communities together and point out to everyone how much that bill was impacting all of us. I had just come back from Los Angeles. I can actually tell you I was driving through Stillwater, Oklahoma when McCrory signed that bill. But I came back and started going to the rallies. And initially, the rallies that I went to were all queer-based. That lasted for maybe the first 3 of them, maybe the first week I was back. After that, every rally I went to had far more than just queer people involved. There were faith leaders present. There were community leaders present. There were people that were speaking about how each and every subset of the community was being impacted by some portion of House Bill 2. And it was in that moment that you really saw this community stand together side by side. Nobody cared who they were standing next to. Nobody really cared whose voice was being heard over anyone else's. We all knew in that moment that this bill had to be defeated, or else we were all going to lose access to our rights and privileges. That's a similar place to where we are right now. I think the queer community is under a full-throated attack. But I also think that there are other communities that are under a full-throated attack. And everyone right now is feeling this anxiety and this fear and this depression. And I think if we want people to show up and support our message, we have to be willing to show up and support others' messages too, even if it's not exactly ours. So,
I mean, you started in a space of solidarity and now are coming to a space of solidarity. So I think it makes sense. And it's such a beautiful response to that.
And I do want to ask it, not to beat a dead horse more and more and more, but politically speaking, what do you see or what have you heard that you could probably let us know and our viewers listening? What's the biggest hurdles facing the trans community coming out of politics right now? Like, what are some things that are coming up that we need to be ready for?
if I could put one statement on the record, I would say that it's the trans sports issue is a smokescreen. It's not an issue. It is an absolute smokescreen. And caving into it is caving into a false issue. I would encourage as many people as possible to start following local journalists or independent journalists that are reporting on issues directly from the source. Erin Reed is someone who I follow on a regular basis who just is absolutely amazing with her coverage. As depressing as it is, her coverage is incredible. And that leads to the warning. She's put out an article recently, I think late last week, pointing towards April 28th as the date that we anticipate Donald Trump to release basically his version of the Cass report. If you're not familiar with the Cass report came out of England, and it was a study that was backed by anti-trans bias and had false information linking puberty blockers to bone density issues. Erin has a pretty amazing article debunking that entire report, but that report is the basis for the UK's recent decision, their Supreme Court ruling to state that trans women are not women when it comes to equality over there. That's based on the Cass report. Their decision making has been based off of a report full of bad science. That report is so widely believed to be full of bad science that the entire nation of France, their scientific and medical community, came together and said, we disagree with this. We're not following it. We're okay with trans people and trans healthcare. They were not happy with the Cass report. The entire nation spoke out against it. Erin has released a report stating that Trump is going to do the same thing here, that on April 28th at the latest is when his report is expected, that is going to be full of bad science and likely will be used to cut off access to medication for as many trans people as possible. And that includes youth and adults. Encouraging people to really keep an eye on that news story and that article, that so-called study, when it gets released, because it's going to be used like a sledgehammer, but it's written in bad science, it's written in bad faith, and hopefully someone will get it dismissed as quickly as possible.
So in all of the work that you've done, you also bring a really rich lived experience. How has your experience as a trans woman and as a queer person informed your vision of the world and the way that you approach these issues?
I've always been an empathetic person. That was just kind of baked into me growing up. I think my transition has helped me better understand where that empathy comes from, better understand my own motivations. And I think it has informed my ability to walk into a situation where someone is in need of help. And I'd like to think that I can help them without putting them in a position where it feels like I am bettering myself or othering, that I'm trying to openly listen and openly be neutral support at best. Just offer them as much support as possible without any judgment whatsoever. I think that has played a large part in what I really enjoy doing at the center, and that's just being able to answer questions that folks come in and ask honestly. We do a program called No Stupid Questions, where we sit with a group and we fishbowl. We encourage them to write a question down if they're uncomfortable saying it out loud. But we make everybody write something down, and there's a fishbowl that's passed around, and people are encouraged to speak up. But we also will pull those questions and read them aloud. And being able to answer those questions honestly without judgment, without making a person feel guilty for not knowing, for not having Googled it themselves, for making me feel uncomfortable for having to answer it. I think that's a very valuable thing in a community like ours. I think that really gives people who maybe have heard things about the trans community, but haven't sorted out that knowledge for themselves. I think one of the things that shocked me the most when I came out and came home the first time was my mom looked at me and said, "You don't look like a drag queen." And I said, "No, I'm not a drag queen." That's a misconception that I think is out there, that when people hear trans woman, they get a mental image of a drag queen. Being able to help folks navigate and understand who a trans person truly is without making that person feel guilty for having to ask those questions is just something that I really enjoy doing. And I don't know that I would enjoy it as much as I do had I not transitioned. So there's a long walk to a weird answer. I hope that makes sense.
No, I could definitely, I can assimilate to that same answer and agree to that answer, and most definitely as well too. So, because I love to hear the references of trans women, because I had a person that I worked with, this was years ago, and I honestly did not come out or anything. Like, I was outed by somebody else. Someone else told my story for me, which I honestly didn't care because that's just who I am. But it was funny. One of my coworkers responded and was like, "You don't look like Joanna Man." And all I could do was laugh, because that was your reference to what a trans woman would look like, because you think of a woman in the NBA. Okay, but I had to laugh at it so that it didn't bother me. So I can only imagine some of the things that you may have heard over the years.
Yeah. I mean, I just think that when the topic comes up, I think people form a conception and they're afraid to ask questions to inform that conception. I think, I know for a fact that the trans community is extremely well educated when it comes to transition. We all talk to each other. I mean, I knew, okay, so I don't want to trip off onto a different story here, but I didn't transition correctly. I didn't go through the process of getting a prescription per se. I bought my hormones off the internet when I first started my transition. I knew my dosages because they were written on the stall door at the Oxwood Inn in Van Nuys, California. And that's how I knew to take 2 blue and 1 white. We help each other. We speak to each other. We're extremely well informed. So when someone asks a question that we all know the answer to, I think it's really easy for us to respond in a way that's negative, in a way that is condescending, in a way that is hurtful.
Mm-hmm.
I think being able to give the outside community an honest opportunity to ask what questions would likely be considered inappropriate in a queer circle, letting the community ask those questions in certain situations is extremely beneficial. Again, there's the asterisk of in certain situations. There are going to be situations where those questions aren't appropriate at all. So.
And I definitely agree. I think that if we give people the space to educate themselves, it makes it easier for everybody to coexist in a society where we can all get along. But I'm like you, it just all depends. I used to tell people all the time, I don't mind children asking me questions, but certain adults, your question is facetious and it is not actually a question. So I do mind if you ask that question. So I definitely understand where you're coming from in the right situation. But at the same time, I try to let people know you can come and openly talk to me because I'm an open book, because there's things I'd rather you ask than assume any day, you know. But so I will have to say this real quick. We are actually going to break. We have been discussing some interesting things, but when we come back, we're going to have a little fun with you. Is that okay?
Sounds good. Sounds good.
All right. So if you're listening out there, just give us a few moments and we'll be right back. All right, so we are back to Power Beyond Pride here with the wonderful Melvy Shaw and my beautiful co-host Kate, and we have been having a really good conversation, but I feel like we've missed a part of you, Melvy, and I want to backtrack to the very beginning of our interview where we talked about some of your highlights and hobbies. So you're a photographer, correct?
I am. Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely more of a hobby than a profession. It's something I kind of learned to do backwards. My job was in post-production and working in video editing. And I had absolutely no idea how to work a camera. And I knew what I didn't like coming out of the field. So I picked up a camera and tried to figure out how to not do that and have just kind of gone backward from there. And so I just kind of taught it to myself backwards, I guess. But
what's your favorite part of photography?
For me, I think it's not knowing what you're capturing. You have a subject, you're aiming at it, but I shoot a lot in burst mode and trying to capture a specific angle or a frame and shooting that way I found leads to worse results than simply tap dancing around, letting the creature take you where it's going to take you. And to give you specifics, I photograph a lot of butterflies, and my neighbors have seen me more often than not running around, probably looking like I'm drunk, chasing a butterfly, just letting my camera take it from whatever angle it's in front of my lens at. And that usually yields a great result. It kind of gives me a moment that I was a part of, but I didn't necessarily see. And now that's a moment that I get to share with others. So.
I like that. Yeah. You know, they say a picture's worth 1,000 words. So, yeah.
There you go.
Well, we are about to enter into our rapid fire question portion of the show. This is the part of the show where I do apologize. Any question can come up, Melvy. Okay. So be prepared. Don't get stuck in one position. Referring back to something you previously just discussed with us before the show. Well, no. But also, yeah, so just be open, ready, and it's the first answer that pops in your head is the answer to these questions. Okay.
Sounds good.
Perfect. And if you have funny stories to go with it, go ahead and feel free to share them. We love funny. So question number 1, if you could wear one color for the rest of your life, what color would it be?
Black. Yeah, I don't know. It's the most versatile, you know,
Okay.
and
I was thinking more mysterious, but okay. I like versatile.
yeah. Plus, it doesn't get dirty.
Unless it is springtime in North Carolina and everything turns green. So it doesn't even matter what color you're wearing.
Yeah, that is true. So by default, you get yellow for a month out of every year.
There you go. I love it. Kate.
All right, Melvy, what's your go-to coffee mug?
It's a mocha, and that's because I really do not know coffee at all.
Okay.
Yeah, I grew up in a household where soda was the beverage of choice, was the caffeine of choice. And when I was in high school, I learned to put hot chocolate in a cup of coffee, and that made it palatable to me. So now if I do get coffee, it's a mocha.
I'm just happy to know I'm not the only person that does that because I used to put hot chocolate in coffee together. Oh my God, I used to think I was so fancy and fabulous. I get my mom's instant coffee and a pack of instant hot chocolate and mix it together.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
For a while.
There you go. Add a little milk to it. There you go. You got it. Now, let's see here. What's the, let's see, this is a hard question because you may not know the answer to this. Do you snore? And if so, how loud?
I know that I grind my teeth. I probably snore. And I know that I talk in my sleep.
That's
I was a camp counselor for a number of years, and I had a co-counselor that had to wake me up one night because I was yelling at my campers in my sleep. So I know that I talk in my sleep.
Film or digital, and why?
Oh, I like to watch film. I like to create with digital. I like to watch film because it's, to me, still the standard to beat. I like to create with digital because film is expensive and I really don't know how to use it all that well.
Good reasons.
So
I'm about to say, we know our strengths and our weaknesses. I like it. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. What's the strangest talent you possess?
I make beef jerky.
Ooh.
Yeah, I make beef jerky, 130 hour that I marinate it. It's started off trying to recreate my grandfather's recipe after he passed, and it just has kind of evolved. And now I have this 130-hour process for making beef jerky.
Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Wars.
Okay. Peaches or plums?
Plums.
Really? Why plums?
I love the flavor of peaches. I don't like the fibers they leave behind in my teeth. Plum's a bit more like eating a grape to me, a big grape. So
Scuba diving or skydiving? That'll be my last question.
I've been skydiving. I've not been scuba diving, so I'll go skydiving.
How does skydiving feel? I said it for my 40th. I'm turning 40 this year. I wanted to do skydiving. So would you recommend a specific place to go skydiving or scenery wise?
Do it near the coast. It's close, or a body of water, something to give you a visual. I did it off the California coast up near Lompoc and Vandenberg, which is where the Air Force Base is. So we could see, as we were coming down, we could see all of the Channel Islands, the Pacific Ocean, heading out into the desert, the Mojave. So absolutely beautiful vista out there. I've heard some people talk about Myrtle Beach being a great place if you're going to stay on the East Coast. I don't know that for sure, but I guess that would be kind of like trying to get out somewhere where you can split your scenery. I guess it might give you a point of view on where you are because you're going to be spinning around in a circle. So I could always tell which direction I was pointed based on whether I was looking at water or the desert.
Okay, that makes sense. And actually, I'll be on the West Coast, so that would be cool. That'll be cool. So I thank you for the advice. And before we end the show, I do want to say thank you. Thank you so much for being here, Melvy. We have definitely enjoyed you this evening. And my last question, I guess we'll wrap up with this one, is what are your biggest goals and dreams for the future of the transgender rights?
If there was a way to put us back where we were prior to January 20th, if that was the inauguration date, I can't remember. That's the first goal. It wasn't perfect, but it was par for the course. I want to see the sports conversation go back to being between people who understand the medicine and the science behind it and not misguided parents. And the same thing, I want to see the same thing happen for medicine. And this challenge to transgender healthcare right now is coming from bad science. It's coming from a number of different things, including Citizens United. It needs to go back to being between doctors and patients. That's not a special right. That's not something that we should have to ask for. That's just common logic. I'd like for the trans community to stop being used as a weapon to divide this country. We make up such a small percentage of the country. It infuriates me when I hear someone talking about how they don't want to have to pay for a trans person surgery in prison, because there have been over 850 laws proposed this year against the LGBTQ community, largely focused at trans people. How much money was spent on those laws? I mean, how much money has been blown on drafting all of those proposals? And that's happened year after year after year for the last 5 years. I'm tired of being used as a wedge. I'm tired of being used as a tool. I'm tired of being used as a weapon. I'm just ready to live my life, find some happiness and some peace.
Well, we definitely hope for that peace and peace for you.
Thank you.
And Melvy, where can people follow you?
Right now, just on 500px. That link is going to be somewhere. I will put it in the chat for y'all. I have intentionally shut down my socials. I just can't support Meta right now. So that's pretty much all I've got to point you towards, but I'll get you a link for that.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And I wish we had more time to continue this conversation, but unfortunately we are out for right now. Will you please come back and share more about your journey?
Absolutely. Anytime. Thank you all for the opportunity here this evening.
Well, that's all we have today for today's show. You can learn more about Melvy at 500px.com, and we'll provide that link for you below. I'm Kate Diadamo, and you can find me at reframehealthandjustice.com and on Instagram at Harm Reduction Femmes.
And I'm Mattie Bynum. You can find me at Instagram on Mattie Simone 737 or Facebook Mattie Bynum. And once again, Melvy Shaw, we definitely want to thank you for being here today, and we want to thank our listeners for joining in on today's conversation. Remember, you can subscribe and get your friends and family to subscribe to Power Beyond Pride, where you get your podcast. Check out our website as well, powerbeyondpride.com, as well as following all of our socials.
Power Beyond Pride is a project from A Great Idea, a queer-owned design and content agency. Learn more about them at agreatidea.com. This episode is produced by Shane Lucas. Smita Sarkar is our project developer. Our editor is Jarrett Redding with support from Ian Wilson. We are both part of this podcast host team, and we invite you to send in your questions and comments at powerbeyondpride.com.
We look forward to the queer change making with you at Power Beyond Pride.